Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Dan Blanchard with the Travel in Time with Dan show, where I mix travel with history and with leadership, of course with me, Dan Blanchard. Today, I'm at the Connecticut State Police Museum in Meriden, Connecticut, and it's right here. Now, this is not to be confused with the Connecticut State Police headquarters in Middletown, Connecticut. This is the museum in Meriden, Connecticut. All right, so what's the history of the Connecticut State Police? Well, they started off as a law and order league of Connecticut to kind of police or enforce some of the vice laws that weren't exactly always being followed and sometimes overlooked by some of the local police. You know, the liquor laws, the gambling laws, maybe the prostitution laws. And the Law and Order League of Connecticut is eventually going to turn into the Connecticut State Police Department in 1903, which is the oldest state police department in the country. Now, I know some of you may be saying, well, what about the Texas Rangers, right? They're older. What about the Massachusetts Constables? They're older. And absolutely, you are correct. They are older, but however, they have a different name. They're not called the Texas State Police or the Massachusetts State Police. They're called the Texas Rangers. They're called the Massachusetts Constables. So when it comes down to the name of state police, Connecticut, 1903, has the oldest in the country using the name of the state police. So what was it like for these early state police and even today, but the early ones? Well, it's like a military boot camp training, like Army training, to get trained to be a state police officer. And guess how much those early ones made? $3 a day is what they made, right? Imagine that, $3 a day. Now, here's something funny. When you think about today's state police, you tend to think about the state troopers cruising around in their vehicles up and down the highways. But guess how the early state police traveled? They traveled by rail. Yes, railroad, right? Trains. They traveled by horse and they traveled by foot, right? That's how they traveled. Very different. So what is the progression of the Connecticut State Police? Well, as I'd mentioned, they had started off to enforce the vice laws when lots of the locals weren't paying attention, and that was particularly important when they did get to prohibition, right? After the vice laws, they went to protection. When people were like hitting each other, stealing from each other, right? Assault, all that stuff, right? Murder. So it's protection. Eventually, as more and more people are in Connecticut and more cars are cruising the roadways, the highways, well, first the roadways, highways later, in Connecticut, they emerge or transform into like public safety, emergency response. All right, that's what they do. I've seen a lot of that. I'm sure you have too. All right, so again, this Connecticut State Police Museum, it's been open for a bunch of years. It's open, I think, on Fridays and Saturdays, year round. You can go in and check it out. You can see some pretty cool stuff in there. They've got some of the old handcuffs, some of the old nightsticks, batons, and all that stuff. Pretty cool stuff. You can also see a vintage vehicle garage, which is really cool, with the old cruisers in the state police. And they also have, the Connecticut State Police have a forensic lab, which is the most famous in the world. Probably Dr. Henry Lee has got something to do with that. And something that some people forget is that the state police man towns that don't have a police department. The town I live in doesn't have a police department. So in our town hall, we have a couple state police in there that are patrolling the town and taking care of the town. Now, realize this. With all police, all people of service and law enforcement, every now and then, some of them have to pay the ultimate sacrifice. They give their lives serving their town, city, state, right? My old buddy, my old high school wrestling teammate, dear buddy, Kevin Miller, went off to become a Marine after high school and after Marine, a state trooper, and he gave his life serving the state of Connecticut. Gave his life. Kevin Miller, state trooper. Him, among many other. my dear buddy, Kevin Miller. All right, so you know I like to talk about travel, history, and leadership when I do these shows. If you have not traveled down the Meriden, Connecticut, you definitely should. There's some pretty cool things in Meriden, Connecticut to see. This museum is just one of many. The history, I've already kind of shared with you. The leadership. What is the leadership? Well, the power of five, of course. In 1903, just 5 guys started the oldest state police force in the country that's still going powerful today. The power of 5, just 5 guys did this. That's leadership, all right? Well, once again, I want to thank all of you for spending time with me, Dan Blanchard, on the Travel in Time with Dan show, where we do travel, history, and leadership. And I will be back again with another show real soon, and I will see you then. Take care, all.